to everyone. Changing the world is hard work. With so much at stake, the work of launching and managing a social enterprise can seem overwhelming. The Entrepreneurship Society yet again presents another webinar on social entrepreneurship by the founder of House of Lonali, Lonali Rodrigo. This webinar is to highlight the importance of social entrepreneurship and why we need to consider this way of doing business is a need in the world today because it is what today's consumers want. Lonali Rodrigo is the founder and designer behind the House of Lonali, the brand for all who believe there is a unique beauty in every flower. House of Lonali is the conscious designer brand that creates uncompromising fashion and style while caring for people and the planet. As soon as she graduated from the University of Northumbria, she decided to take the challenge of starting her own enterprise, House of Lonali, as the first upcycling fashion brand from Sri Lanka, designing and crafting beautiful unique pieces from textile waste. With a circular mindset, she minimizes the impact of production and consumption on the planet and creates a positive impact. Thank you, Lanali, for accepting our invitation and spending your precious time with us today. As an introduction, can you please tell us about yourself, your background?
So Rashmi, I think good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for the introduction as well. I'm happy to be here and share our story and some about our social enterprise journey, as well as some other tips about sustainability and social entrepreneurship. To Rashmi, just to start off, I think I'm going to start off with the presentation, which will cover some of the questions I've already mentioned. So I'll do a little bit of an introduction in the presentation as well. Before that, I think my presentation will start off with an introduction to sustainability and fashion industry, because I think that's very much about what we do and what we believe in, and also what we want you to believe and what we want you to understand. So therefore, I think I'm going to start off sharing my screen, the presentation. And can you all see my presentation?
Yes, Solana, we can see.
Okay, so I'm going to start off, Rashmi, I'll be probably giving a little bit of an introduction, as well as, like I said, I will be introducing to the sustainable fashion and apparel industry and its impact and what role we play in it, and get into our business, and we'll explain a bit about House of Lonali and what we do as well. It'll take a bit of about 20 minutes, and then we will move on to the questions. Is that okay?
Yeah, that will be great.
Okay. To start off, so I want to start off saying I'm a designer. I professionally, I'm a designer, and if you just Rashmini introduced me with all the nice parts, but to reintroduce myself, I'm a person who loves the environment and love animal and love to be outside, enjoy the outdoor a lot. So I think that's who I am. And being professionally a designer, I always wanted to do something that I would enjoy. Creative people always want to do what they like to do and, keep their mind and creative side brain working, right? So after graduating, obviously, I wanted to kind of figure out what to do, something different than just a designer. So that's exactly what I was looking for. And then I figured out that there is an apparel industry in Sri Lanka. At the same time, you and I both are consumers. So we go to buy a piece of clothing, and what do we really look at? That was one of my first questions. What do we really look at? So we will be looking at the price, the look, size, the color, whether it's trendy. That's exactly what we look at when we try to go and buy a piece of clothing. Let's take an example. This is the t-shirt that you and I go to a shop to buy. And this t-shirt takes about 2,700 liters of water to produce just one t-shirt. So this is this is drinking water for a person for 2.5 years. So this is what exactly goes into this. So what I started to understand is, as a designer, there is so much more to a product that we design than what we exactly see. The beauty is not just in what we see outside. So that is where I kind of, I think, started looking on, started, challenging myself and saying, I like to kind of, create something more impactful as a designer. I want to create and start something, create that helps the environment. So starting on, I'm going to explain a bit about this t-shirt, because I think most of you, I mean, you have the probably fashion students also joining from the masters, as well as other IT and a lot of tech, probably tech and economic and business related students. But I want you to start thinking as a consumer, and I'm going to take you through this journey so that you all understand what is this t-shirt, what is the clothing that, but what is behind the clothing that we really purchase. So it start off with in a cotton farm, probably can be in India, Pakistan, most of the African countries, as well as Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. All these areas are very, very known for cotton farming. And cotton takes to grow cotton, it takes about 10,000 to 20,000 liters of water to grow 1 kilogram of cotton. So there's a lot of water that needs to put in, as well as the fertilizers and human energy that goes into farming cotton. Cotton is one of the most used fibers, and that is the beginning of a t-shirt. At the same time, polyester is also one of the very known or currently used, like very popular fiber that we use for most of our clothing, which comes from crude oil and a byproduct of petroleum. But it also takes about, it is probably not the best fiber, but it is used in about 330 million barrels of oil is used to make polyester just in your clothing and textile. Then there's also other fibers, man-made fibers, like other nylon to acrylic to lycra fibers. And then you also have the other natural fibers, which is from other than cotton, viscose, bamboo, silk, and most of other natural fibers, which also goes through a huge process of making into these little threads, and then it goes to a textile processing factory. Mostly these are like in China or Korea, India. So it's either takes a lot of energy in a machine to weave it or knit it, or either it's done by a hand woven. So you must have seen, some of you must have already seen the hand loom. So what you do is you put the yarn together and you create a textile. Then, of course, to cater to what your demand and my demand, we want all the beautiful colors in the world when we go to a store. So it needs to be dyed, printed sometimes. So these gets dyed. When you dye, it takes a lot of again water and energy as well. And most of these water releases with chemicals, and toxic water releases to the sea as well, sea and rivers as well. Finally, all these material, including the fabric, the trims, the zips to buttons, to all of these come to manufacturing hubs. The best example is our country. We are also known as a finished good manufacturer of apparels. And India, Bangladesh, China, Vietnam, Egypt, they are also some of the upcoming countries, even African countries. So these are some of the countries that finally make the product, which with all these raw materials put together, plus packing material, finally comes as polybags, cardboard, everything comes into this place, and then we finally make that garment and pack it to send it to the retail store. It is expected that greenhouse gas emission of the material and apparel production exceeds the combined emission of international aviation and maritime transport. So you can imagine that amount of carbon emission. Plus, this fashion industry is also known as the second largest polluter in the world. Then here we are on a Black Friday. I mean, obviously Sri Lanka, I always say when I put this slide, this is not Sri Lanka, and I'm happy to say we are not there yet. We are now going into Black Friday sales, but this is mostly in the Western countries on a Black Friday. They just go and bargain and buy the cheap clothes just because the retailers want to finish their old stock before the new stock for the December season. So this is just a gimmick that they play, and then our customers just go and buy the cheapest bargain the clothes. Without considering the fact that there has been labor, there has been so much of raw material, there was so much of people that involves this process. Again, Sri Lanka, we are not here. We don't do this kind of shopping, but I have seen the Black Friday offers coming up, and that's why I wanted to start off with these slides, educating you all more about what is exactly fashion industry is about. Finally, yes, we use the clothing for about good 5-6 years, and then it ends up in a landfill. Again, this is in a Western world. I'm so lucky to be in Sri Lanka, where we do not, as a practice, I haven't seen a lot of people throwing clothes to a bin. We in Sri Lanka do a lot of, sharing between sisters, brothers, cousins, and then we donate it, and finally, if we can't do anything, we will use it as a duster or a carpet. So I think we are given our parents and our grandparents have that great practice of reuse and recycling, reuse and repurposing. So I think we shouldn't be following the trends of Westerners and then falling in this kind of situation. So this is what happens in most of the countries. And plus this ends up again in our third world countries. After being made in our countries, it goes to America or Europe and then comes back to the poor countries, and they just dump it. I mean, they say it's donation, but then just dump it in most of the landfills. And then the third world countries like ours, I mean, if you can remember, Philippines recently banned secondhand goods. These goes to Africa. Sri Lanka recently had a ship of secondhand goods coming in, and we didn't know what to do with it. So there's a lot of talk about this area as well. And this is really money. If you really look at it, this is USD 500 billion value lost per year, every year. So this is what is really the apparel industry is. So I'm going to go next to the impact. So I've just showed you what really, each stage of apparel and how it really comes to your hand and what happens after it goes from your hand. So the impact of this is simply, I don't know if you all have done geography or you must have marked this Aral Sea, the 1989, this sea is in between Russia, Kazakhstan, and, that area of, right above Eastern Europe and Russia and above Asia, this Aral Sea, which is now by 2008 basis, and right now I think it's probably not even worse than this as well. The sea is completely covered by sand because of cotton farming. It takes a lot of water. Obviously, then the sand gets deposited, and then it's just, it's not anymore there. So these are the impact, which we don't realize that when we go buy a garment, we really don't think that we are connected to climate change. This is where I think the biggest problem is, where when we buy food, we see the reaction on ourselves at that point. I mean, if we buy bad food, we will get a stomachache, or if we buy oily food, we will get fat, right? So it's unhealthy for us. So that is being the reaction is seen in your body. But when you purchase your garment, you're not really bothered, and then because you're not connected to what is happening behind, right? Because the amount of clothing you purchase, there's probably this is what is happening somewhere, right? Because of the demand that you're creating, you and I both, we are all consumers. This is what happens because we create a huge demand. This is Rana Plaza. I don't know if any one of y'all have seen this image before. This is in Bangladesh. This incident happened in 2013 in Bangladesh in a factory called Rana Plaza. This factory, what happened was basically so this factory had some cracks on the wall, and then all the other offices and the banks, and there were some other corporates, they all said not for employees not to come to work. But of course, the apparel industry couldn't take 1 day leave because there's such a demand and there's such targets to achieve. They wanted these people to come to work. As they walked in the morning, the building collapsed and 1,134 people died. None of the brands took the responsibility. Nobody, I mean, really connect this human energy, human value that is behind our garments. We really don't know who our clothes, who made our clothes. I mean, we don't even want to know. We don't even demand that we want to know. That's very sad. Where these must be coming from places like this. It might be stitched by underage children. It might be stitched in a bad working condition. There's so much that happens behind our clothes to people, from the cotton farming farmers to the men and women who make our clothes. So that's the impact, the human aspect of aspect that's behind our clothing. Then after all, finally, we have the air pollution, water pollution. A lot of energy, a lot of carbon emission happens in the industry. Like I said, water consumption plus the disposal, the dyes to chemicals that dispose through the process pollutes the water. Finally, these clothes end up in dump yards. It pollutes the soil as well, because if you heard about the plastic issue, it's just that you think that your plastic is like the bottles, PET bottles, but like I said, it starts with polyester, which is a byproduct of petroleum, which comes as polyester, and then it's in your garments forever. It takes about 200 or 1,000, sometimes in some cases takes more than 1,000 years to decompose, and that also sometimes ends up as microplastics, goes to the sea. Every time you wash your clothes, it might release to the water disposal system. It might go to the seas and rivers, and the fish and the marine animals will consume these, and it ends up in our bodies. So this is something that we don't really talk about when you talk about the plastics problem plastic pollution also. But this is what happens in our clothes as well. So this is simply the second chapter. I'm closing with the impact of the fashion industry. And so ethical fashion or sustainable fashion, or also today's topic is about social and entrepreneurship. So simply ethical fashion is doing all those processes that we discussed, from starting from the design perspective to sourcing, manufacturing, usage, and dispose. If you can minimize the benefit and maximize the positive impact to the environment and people, that is you have to minimize the negative impact, and maximize the benefit to the community and people. So that's how you do. If you can do that, that is ethical fashion or ethical chocolate or ethical food. Simply how you kind of do this in any industry. This is really simply related to all across the industries, and that means you are preserving it for your future generation, because you are considering all these aspects for the future generation. simply, if I put it in one slide, minimizing all these environmental impacts and maximizing the social and as well as the animal as well. Um, so that is what is sustainability and ethical is, and social entrepreneurship is actually doing an enterprise under this system. So if you can make your business, do your business, all your business activities to minimize your impact and maximize the benefit, I think that is simply social enterprise. Some models are created to kind of, you make profit and you do something good to the environment. But I think social entrepreneurship should be something that the main business activity or the main purpose of the business should be aligned to this principle. Then let's move on to some of the ethical fashion criteria, because I'm also taking this as an opportunity to educate you about what really sustainability is and what role you play. Because you all are consumers, and you need to be aware of it, and you need to create demand. In this world, there's 7.7 billion people, and for that demand, there's 100 billion clothes made annually. Just imagine the demand that we create. And in a good situation, about 10% of that gets wasted even before we use it. So imagine the number of tons that gets wasted, which is also equivalent to 3/4 of Sri Lanka's land mass. So it's crazy. So this is why I want to take this opportunity to educate you all, and then move on to my business and our journey. So some criteria, I kept this slide empty mainly because I thought it will be an engagement session, and I wanted you all to actually come up with some, tell me some local brands. But since we are also on Facebook Live, so I'll just say what should go into this actually. Is locally made. Anything that locally made is sustainable. Why? Yes, it does support the local economy, but going further, it also gives a very transparent and shorter supply chain. That helps to keep the carbon footprint low in any of the products. So if you make local, you don't have to do shipping within the country. I mean, especially if it's Sri Lanka, it's a very short transportation. Like can be train or bus. It doesn't. I mean, you usually don't air freight within the country, and then that cuts your carbon emission in transportation. It's a very transparent supply chain. So there are plenty of brands that make locally. I mean, across. Let's even talk about. It doesn't have to be fashion, but if you take Sparcelon to Orange to, there's Goody Batik to Celine's to so many local brands that you could support. And the most important thing is you need to be looking at your label and checking where your clothes are made. A lot of people go and I mean, we've done few activities, and in those activities, I've seen a lot of people go and when we ask them where your clothes are made, they go and pin the place where they have purchased. But if you really need to know where it's made, you have a look at the tag, and it says where it's made, and we should be proud if it's made. You should be proudly wearing made in Sri Lanka. Then, of course, environmental friendly and sustainable. This is the best example. Is right now the most interesting trend is vegan food, organic vegetables. So I think that's how the awareness started building in Sri Lanka as well, because it started to become, people started to, the food industry actually is ahead than the fashion industry when it comes to organic and veganism. So you don't use chemicals, you have natural fibers in your clothing. It's environmentally friendly. It will decay. It is natural, therefore it decays, and it biodegrades mostly. So this is the kind of concept. So if your clothing or if your tea, or if your food or vegetables can be organic, and this is one way of being sustainable. Fair trade. Fair trade is a certification you get for the fair wages that is paid for making your clothes, which is under the labor regulations. You have usually in every country that there is a minimum wage, and under this certification, they maintain that you in your company, you pay a fair wage for the your manufacturers. So one good example, I've taken two examples. One is a foreign example, which is a People Trees, a British brand made in Africa. And of course, Celine, which is a handloom company in Sri Lanka, who also owns a fair trade certification. Respecting animal rights. So it's animal rights have been like for the past 10 years, this talk about the animal rights have been started. No testing, starting from testing to wearing fur to leather. So leather used to be an exclusive fabric. Fur used to be exclusive, but then I don't think it is anymore. It is considered probably the cheapest, or not even considered anymore. So this is why we should keep up with our trends sometimes and take the right trends. So this is this is the veganism also is a part of this animal right and respecting animals. So I mean, this is something that we always talk about even in Sri Lanka, but we don't have a lot of animal. I mean, we do have the leather industry, but not so much of fur. But this is in most of the European countries. It's just in a really a bad situation. If you look at even China to even to Italy, rabbits to all sort of animals. So I also like to bring into your attention. In the whole world, there's about 36% of human, 60% of livestock, which is made for our food, and the whole of wild animals in the whole world is just 4%. So imagine that 60% is made for food and clothing. They're farmed, they're made to kill. For the 36% of us, and then 4% is only the wild animals that we're talking about, the elephants or the lions or the deers that we talk about. So moving on, ethical trade is also one of the criteria that you can consider as sustainable. And the best example is Sri Lanka. The one of the factories that is in Sri Lanka, Brandix factory. We have three amazing apparel industries like Brandix, MAS, and Hydrominis, who have these eco factories. And the other side shows a Bangladesh picture, obviously. This is giving the right creating the right environment for workers, giving them the right to talk, freedom to breathe. The whole environment is the right created. I mean, in Sri Lanka, they offer the food, lunch to tea, transportation. So all these are given. So I think that's why I said if you're wearing something made in Sri Lanka, I think you should be very proud. Finally, upcycling, recycling, vintage, secondhand, swapping. So this is a part of what you can do, as well as what is I as a brand fall in. Our brand also falls under this category because we upcycle. So this is either you upcycle with waste, or you reuse your clothing, or you can resell your clothing. You can swap, which is like sharing. You can repurpose it, remanufacture it. This is all something that you and I can do as consumers as well. So again, finally coming into the end of the presentation, it is all about maximizing the social benefit and minimizing the environmental impact. So this is the base of a social enterprise. If what you do, your purpose of your business aligns to this, your core activities can align to this, it is a social enterprise itself. So So what role you and I play in this is, you are a consumer, but of course I am a designer and a consumer. So obviously I have much more responsibility. So I think I saw waste as an opportunity. So this is the answer for the question, to say what we basically do. So this is a basic introduction for House of Lonali as well. And what we do is basically take apparel industry waste, which is pre-consumed before going into consumers. There's plenty of different types of waste, from cut pieces, off cuts, roll ends, excess rolls, to trims, reject garments, different form cut pieces, all that. So we work with the cottage industry because it's waste and it's so ad hoc. We have to work with the cottage industry, women and artisans, to create this into new products, basically upcycle it into new products, because you need a little bit more love than usual. um, because it comes in different forms. Every time it's different. We need some time to give more love. Therefore, we work with the people at in the cottage industry level, men and women. So this is basically what we do. We convert garments into shoes. You can see the books and the shoes, that with hats and everything we've created. So we have, I am sure you guys must have seen, it's time to go follow House of Lonali on Instagram as well as on Facebook. I would prefer you guys going and having a look right away, because I'm sure since y'all are in front of a computer, joining virtually, just go and check it out. Check out our brand, House of Lonali. What we basically have is a collection of clothing and accessories made completely out of waste, 100% upcycled and ethically sourced in Sri Lanka. So we have the retail, which is at Urban Island, as well as the Design Collective is our main retail store. We have the retail collection, which under the Lonali brand, mainly for women, women, and we do have few products for men and kids as well, which we started last year. Then that is our main B2B component, and then our B2C component, and then moving on to the B2B. We work with a lot of corporates, also in creative resource recovery. So sometimes we look at their waste and create solutions. And also we also deliver design and sustainable consultancy as a service as well. So that's basically what we do as House of Lonali. The presentation is, of course, I'm sure I've covered few areas, but I'm happy to answer any of your questions, Rashmi. Stop sharing. Rashmi?
Yes, it is Rehana here. So I'll be continuing.
Okay.
So, right, it was very enlightening to just see the presentation, get to know so much about you, how you do your things, and it is very much enlightening. And we are actually proud to have individuals like you in Sri Lanka who is trying to create a change and growing further. So like, I mean, we need a change in the world right now. It's so much bad happening around. And so yeah, so moving on to the next question, what did you do before becoming a social entrepreneur?
So obviously, like I said initially, when you were introducing me, I just started off just after graduating. Just after graduating, I started my brand. Obviously, there was a huge challenge or huge question in my mind whether I should go to the industry and get the experience, and earn some money. Obviously, better money, you get a salary. But at the other side, I'm like, okay, I had a brand already, but how am I going to just move on with it? I'm not going to have a salary. I am going to be on my own, have to figure things out. It might work, it might not work. So this was back in 2011 when I graduated. But when I was in college, of course, I took part in a competition and I won that competition, and I had a brand, so-called just a brand with a logo and some, but at least my thought in a piece of paper, a plan, which was also guided by few mentors back then. After winning the award, of course, I had a sort of a 5 months mentorship program, which is where I kind of fine-tuned everything. So I had that little bit of, brand that I built. But after graduating, it was all about, whether I'm going to do this, take it forward with huge challenge, with really a blank canvas, or whether I'm going to go to the industry, get some experience, make some money. I think I took the decision of doing my own way. There are consequences as well, of course, but it went well, I think.
So yeah, so like you started with this concept right after graduating, or you took some time to figure out certain things, or did your internship help you out with it? Um,
I think what was most important is everything I did before helped to be who I am, right? So starting from my childhood, I used to stitch, like, not like cut my mother's saris and make clothes for me. That, I think, without even knowing, that was upcycling. I was doing it as a kid. Without any intention of making it a business or nothing, right? Just even I don't think I even had an idea of being a fashion designer at the time. Then, of course, when I was after A levels, I had a 2-year break, which I had to figure out my life because I didn't know what I wanted to do. At that time, I did everything. So what happened was, to find a lot of people say you're passionate about it, but you don't know what you're passionate about. So I had that time to figure out what I'm really passionate about. So at that time I knew I wanted to do something creative. Creative things always kept me going. And also something to do with clothes, because I did a course in apparel management, and that the whole of everything, I just like the designing part of it. So I think I had to go through everything to figure out, okay, this is where I really fit in. Then I started my design degree. While I was doing design degree, I was involved with the apparel projects that was with the apparel industry. Then only I saw the huge waste that we end up with. Otherwise, I mean, it was not anymore problem at home where my mother's sari gets discarded, but there was tons and tons gets discarded every day. So I saw that bigger picture when I was working with the apparel industry. At the same time, my internships or my work as a student, I was working a lot with the cottage industry artisans as well. I've gone to Jaffna, Gampaha, all sort of, from batik to Birolu to Palmyra hem, all sort of crafts I've been involved with these artisans. So I think that gave me the sort of, it opened my mind. And also I figured out my personality and who I am. I really enjoy going out, traveling, and working with these people. So that, as well as, me looking at that ways, creating things. So that really helped me to kind of figure out who I am and what I really like, which is called probably your passion.
Yes. So, when you started, were there already existing enterprises have already started with a concept like yours, or like, do you feel that you have tough competition, or like at least one or two companies or business starting the same thing? Did you
Uh,
find like that?
to be honest, I am not even challenged after it's been about 8 years. Since 2012, if I said properly, retail started in 2013. So since then, I still don't see anyone doing upcycling. I mean, even I don't know why, because it's a probably hard task and you really need to believe in it. It's not easy. That's what sustainability sometimes is, something that you need to believe, and you have to make other people believe. So I believed in it. It took some time for me to make others believe in it too. But I didn't see competition at that time. There were a few brands, but I really didn't feel I didn't stress about them at all. And even right now, there's a lot of sustainable brands under those criteria that I mentioned, but very few upcycling brand. And since I believe in sustainability, I like the fact that there is more people doing upcycling, and competition helps me to do better. So I'm not really pressured by that. And I don't think there's very few. So I don't, mostly what I feel pressured about is the other retail brands who greenwashes sustainability, who are fast fashion brands and who puts a green background, or some green tag and says, we are green and we are sustainable, and sustainability is basically green. Sustainability is not just green. There is so much to it to care about. So obviously, having to compete with these big retailers, yes, it has been pretty challenging.
Yeah, so like it's challenging, and obviously, because I mean, it consumes time, obviously, and a lot of cost is taking up. And maybe because of that, like the big companies, big brands does not want to try them. So having said that, do you find investors that could invest in your enterprise? Have you
Um,
found?
so, so I actually started off initially my first 3 years. First, I started off on a venture capital platform. I competed in a venture capital competition and got an investor, got an investment from about 5 investors on board. So that's how I started. So I'm very proud that I made from the first two pitches I did, I kind of found investors and started off with investors.
Yes. So did your investors, like you said, whoever that has invested in your enterprise now, would they believe that there could be a sustainable growth for like very long time, or like you have fluctuations here and there?
Definitely. I mean, building a brand itself in a country like Sri Lanka, especially a fashion brand, is a difficult task, right? In Sri Lanka is a very small market, so it takes time. Then growing a brand as a fashion brand is also difficult, and then on top of that, sustainability, that hardcore sustainability was even more tough. So what I had to understand was most of the investors do come for return. So that's the basic. Obviously, it's the return. So I think as a small business, maybe it was a difficult task. I don't know whether I'm still in a financially how profitability is, but the thing is, you have to believe in one and then, right, go for that vision, right? So in that way, it is very difficult to have investors, because that model maybe doesn't work for sustainability sometimes. Because yeah, we do look at profit, but then the social enterprise is, I think, a profit making business. But in a country like Sri Lanka, scaling up, growing so fast, it was pretty difficult. So I don't know whether I made uh, the initial 3 years, whether I could reach that point as a business.
Yeah. So according to you, and for what you see, like what's happening around the world and what's happening around Sri Lanka, what are the three main success factors that an individual needs to have to become a successful social entrepreneur and make a positive change?
So I think the first thing you need to have is you need to identify a problem. Right now, if you don't have a problem, I mean, you're just just creating another product to this world, right? So you need to understand the problem and create a solution to it. That is, I think, very important, right? So you are addressing either a social problem or an environmental problem, and your solution is a solution for the environmental or social problem. That is, I think, that is why I think social entrepreneurship is the future, because it has to look at those aspects in the future, because you can't just create another business. You don't need another fashion brand, you don't need another biscuit brand, you don't need another shoe brand, you don't need, because there's already things people have done, right? Why people want to buy your thing is obviously you are solving a problem, right? So that is, I think, one key part to start off with. Then to go on, I think you need to have uh, a validation. So which is like, you need to validate your impact. This is very important. After you start, you need to make sure you are actually making an impact. This is also something that we learned halfway down the starting the business, because if you're saying you are creating a change, but what is the change you are creating really, right? So you need to have that validation. As a social enterprise, you need to start measuring and you need to start validating. Then, of course, finally, these three comes under the triple bottom line. Obviously, as a social enterprise, I think you need to make profit, and you have to have a model where you can make money out of it, right? Otherwise, if it becomes a sort of a, the charities and you kind of, NGOs, or slightly move towards something else. So if you're a social enterprise, you have that cause, you have the problem, you have the solution, you have the measuring system, you validate it, and you also make money. So it's basically triple bottom line we're talking about. I think those three are the most important things to look at.
Nice. So like we know how like a general enterprise works, like how they make profit, what kind of tactics, promotions, marketing they do. How would that be different to what you are doing with your enterprise?
Yeah. So our marketing, to start off, since we are such a small brand, we don't have big marketing budget, right? So since we don't have, we always try to be organic. Our growth is always organic, and our model uh, our way of doing things is also very organic. So the first thing, I think, the way of our marketing is, we look at it like more awareness and education, right? Because we understood that we are talking about our product upcycle, that in a time in 2013-14, people didn't even know what upcycling was. So we started, okay, let's start educating people about what upcycling is, right? So we took it as a sort of a model where we kind of, we didn't pressure ourselves in that selling, but we kind of started educating. It's a long-term thing, and it's very organic. We don't go behind the likes, but we go behind engagement. We create things that people can engage, people like to see, and we are also showing what we do, because it's very easy for us, right? We don't have to do a marketing campaign to say we are green. We are sustainable. We just show our process, how we do. That is what basically gives us. So I think for us, marketing is more sort of an organic and a very educational, and also quite fun for us. That's how we take marketing as, where a lot of corporate big businesses have to put a big budget to it, and uh, um, create campaigns and all that, where we kind of do it the way we can at the moment, and we don't I think in a long term it has reflected on sales as well.
Yeah. So like a different, like a same question to that question again. How many hours a day do you work on average? Do you have any specific
This
duration?
is a good question, which I don't really have an answer, because sometimes there are days that I work like um, 24 hours or 20 hours, or not, maybe not 20, not 24 hours, because I make sure that I sleep about 5 to 6 hours at least. So it can be from 18 to 12 sometimes, or here and there, because what is most interesting about entrepreneurship is I've heard a lot of people saying, I want to leave the 8 to 5 job. I want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to do an 8 to 5 job. But I don't think that is correct. You're entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to be like an on-call doctor. Basically, you need to be, you need to do it. You need to do it whether it's at 12 o'clock in the night or 6 o'clock in the night, in the morning. So you need to be working across the day. But at the same time, you can have a sort of a personal life balance. There are days that I've taken out. I mean, I've learned that after COVID, especially during the lockdown, that, you know, you need to have that balance in life, because sometimes you're in your own bubble. You always see your business. You don't think beyond that at sometimes. So for me, especially, because it helps to kind of taking that personal time off has helped me to kind of figure things out, you know, look at from a different perspective, you know, look at from outside perspective to the company. So or get inspired from wherever I travel or take that holiday and take travel, people I meet personally. So I think you need to have a balance, but my time, I can't basically say this much.
So like how do you generate your ideas? How like do you have employees working under you? How do you convey your ideas to them, or they have the ability to understand even before you say something?
I think my most creative, my ability or my competency is, I mean, we usually, if you take a design process, you start with the inspiration. If you talk to a normal designer, they start with the inspiration, they start start the collection after that, and then they source the fabric. For us, we are a little bit challenged. Therefore, our process starts from resources, because we need to, first thing is we go looking for waste, right? So we start off with the raw material that we get, whether it's offcuts or round shape or square shapes or half a meter or 1 meter or red or blue color. So one competency I have is, sometimes I know I when I see things, I could imagine this being something like that, right? It happens in my brain. So that's something that happens when I see it. It happens to me. So mostly I source the waste, and then once it comes to our studio, we kind of rework, and obviously we develop and we value add it and figure out how to put it together for a product. Then we have a set of, like I said, the cottage industry women, who we work with. So we work with them on a sample, and we will correct it. We will look into the quality, and then we will look at the pattern and the size or any alterations. And they will continue to start do that product. So that's how we kind of work with. So we have, I have 2 interns as well as working in the studio. So they're design interns, but I'm very much open for to have interns from marketing to finance to, so I'm getting to English interns for writing. So we want it to be, because there's space in a small SME, there's space for everybody, and that is like, you can actually, if you're an intern, you can make a change in the company. Where if you go to a bigger company, you can't. You're no one, right? But in here, if you come, you get to see. You're kind of, you know, you can actually change things. That's the first thing I would ask my interns is, like, if you see any mistake happening here in the process, or if you think we can make it better, please do tell me. That's like the first thing that I ask them to do sometimes, because that outside perspective really helps us, small SMEs, right? And then obviously we have that makers, family of makers who make our products. So they are more like working on a per piece rate model.
Yeah. So like I think I asked this question like how you collaborate with other stakeholders. Like you answered, I think. So coming to what is your ambition for House of Lonali in the coming 3 years or in the near future?
So I think one ambition we have is to last year. So if you look at our impact, last in 2019-20 year, we've used 650 kilograms of waste. We have upcycled that is a very small quantity compared to what's been discarded. But what we hope to do is to consume or to upcycle maybe about 3,000 to 5,000 kilos of waste within the next few years in annual basis. So that's one thing that we wanted to do. And then the other thing that we are planning to do is impact the whole chain. We do use waste where we also create, we want to take be zero waste in the future. In that process, we want to be that. And then we want to be even going further in zero waste in the process. Yes, we are at the moment, we are almost zero waste, but in the process of, making zero waste even further, like after consuming, we understand we put so much value into our products. We don't want that value to end up in a bin. So therefore, we want to make sure whatever the products that we make last for a longer life and never gets discarded. So that is our long-term vision.
Yeah, sounds cool now. Okay. Um, so I think it also addresses your development strategy. Um, so according to you again, how do you measure your social impact? How you've created like a positive change in the world, like in Sri Lanka? How do you measure it?
Obviously, I think it's a very difficult task when you ask what I've done to change. But definitely, again, we do measure our impact from the number of waste that we actually upcycle. So that's where we want to make our biggest impact in. Make sure that we use as much as waste possible. Then the second thing is. Um, to what was the question suddenly? Can you repeat the question? I just had a blank session, a moment.
Yeah, no, like I asked, wait, I also like confused myself right now. Okay, like how do you measure your social impact?
Sorry. Okay, got it. Because I suddenly had one of those blank moments. So the other way of impact making measuring is we have put sustainable KPIs. I was looking for the word and that's why I forgot. So we put in place some sustainable KPIs. So a lot of people put financial profit KPIs, but we are measuring our sustainability, and we want to measure each in our main 5 products the rate of sustainability, what it the resources, like how much of upcycle resources in the product content, and then how much of sustainable, how much of natural resources. So we're actually measuring the top 5 products to kind of understand and push those products to be 100% sustainable, so we are also challenged to do that in a much more better way. So that's one way of looking at it. So each product category or we are trying to take our best selling top 5 products and measure it in that way as well. To answer about what change I've done, I think as personally, I've been talking about this whole sustainable fashion industry as well as upcycling and the impact that we make as consumers throughout the last 8 years. So having one person who has come, I have had few people coming back to me and said, I was inspired and I do this now. You changed the way I think. That is, I think, even if I've already, I mean, I've had a girl coming to me saying I was a role model, and I know the important, because I do have role models. I'm not I mean, even though you introduced me as a successful entrepreneur, I think I have a long way to go. We are a very small and young brand, so I have role models, and I see the importance of important of having a role model and how excited you get. So when that little girl came and said, I inspire, and I was like, that's a little change that I've done. So it feels good to, even if I can change one person today, I think that's the change that I have done.
Yeah. So again, we all know how general, like how profit making businesses solely may do their research, like primary, secondary, like in under them also, like there are certain ways they do it. How do you do your research? What kind of sources that helps you to do this?
So for me, research is, I don't have, I mean, like the bigger businesses have time and have money and have people, resources. So for us, we don't have money, resources. So we need to do our research while we do our business. So basically, my research is more like observing, and that helps because it's all about fashion and products. You design and create a product for people after all, right? So I'm constantly observing uh, people, what they do. That helps me to kind of figure out trends sometimes, because sometimes I obviously look at the trend reports and the fashion shows that is in the Western world, but it is when it comes to selling products here in Sri Lanka, that doesn't really relate all the time. So therefore, I need to keep my eyes open in the market that I am in, really, right? So that I observe a lot, and see what people wear, what people do, how people travel, or it's a lot of observation. I feel like that I do as a part of research. Then, of course, a lot of watching the fashion shows to latest, obviously in the sustainability area. I do a lot of um, like reading too. I'm engaged with a lot of organizations as well as talks and stuff, um, which is like, which also involves a lot of environmental issues and stuff. So you have to keep up with those things because you're in that that space, and it also revolves a lot, changes a lot, because every day you're kind of the world is changing. So you need to be updated. Um, and then also research and quickly putting it to notes. I think what you see, what you hear, noting it down and quickly, I mean, that's we don't have a lot of time to do sit and research, and then uh, that is not a process. Lucky we don't have that what you call luxury as a small SME to do that.
But you'll get them, sure, like in the near future again. So did House of Lonali live up to your high expectations? Like what you expected, did it become a reality in the end?
I would say not yet. There's
Yeah.
long way to go.
It took too soon to make a decision, yeah?
I mean, I'm happy the way it has come so far, because it's been 8 years. Every year we have grown, and we created a brand. People know House of Lonali. Uh, we made a statement. We make our people who wear our clothes make a statement. We build that House of Lonali family of makers and wearers. So looking at why are we here, I'm very much happy. But I also feel like, I mean, I don't want to end here. There's so much more to do. So therefore, I would say I every year I would push that limit or push that barrier, like to a higher thing to, I have to achieve more.
Yes, so good luck with all the positive changes you wish to do in the future. Um, and what was the most important takeaway from your learning, from your degrees, from your internship, from the people around you, the people who helped you, or even your role models? Who you can also talk about, who like a role model that you followed, or like a person you looked up to. Is this question too
Role
big to
models,
answer?
role models I have few in few different ways. Like um each one, I mean, even someone who has done some, I mean, I've like had people who are doing like, I do work with a set of entrepreneurs. Sometimes I do a lot of consultancy with SME micro level entrepreneurs. These women are like amazing. They go to work, they have 3 businesses, they have a family, they have children, and the commitment they have is like, the amount of work they do is amazing. So those people also have inspired me. So there's, I think, to name, there's so many, but actually what I learned from most of them are like, they are, like I said, they're very passionate. And a lot of young people, we are trying to be passionate, but we need to find what really we are passionate about. It is something that, like I said, it's hard to find. So you probably, first thing, I think, you need to understand who you are and what you really love to do. That really helps to give 100%, because this journey needs your commitment, hard work, and perseverance, right? And if you don't enjoy, if you're not doing what you like, that hard work is not going to come out. That commitment is not going to come out. That perseverance is not going to come out. So I think that's what I've learned from a lot of role models, as well as people who are in the business who I've met. That is one key message. And then obviously through what I've learned, I think your knowledge really helps. Again, if you know what you love, it's easier, right? So as in school, I didn't like maths, right? So I didn't want to learn that. I hated it basically. So as I moved on in life, as I kind of figured out what I like, when I went to A levels, I picked geography. I loved it, right? It was so easy. O levels was like so stressful because I didn't like maths. But then moving on to A levels, I really liked it. And then going to the apparel industry management, there was a whole lot, but I knew what I really liked was the design part of it, not management, not merchandising, not lab, or not cutting, nothing production, nothing. I liked that designing part. So then only I went into my design degree. In the design degree, all my colleagues are either in the industry, most of them are in the industry. You are, first thing you need to go when you get out of, I mean, finish your degree, is to know what you like. I mean, I was like, I like working with waste. That's what I like about. I mean, I can, every other designer enjoys being inspired, going and buying the fabric that they like and making stuff. But I don't like it because I like to challenge myself with what is there. That's what I see as beautiful. What I like to challenge myself, and every day it's a new thing, and that's what I like to do. Not the same old thing like in the industry or any other designers do. For me, it's every day a new day. So what your education, while you do your education, what you need to figure out, what is your area. Each degree, if it's business, you will know what business in what area you like. If it's IT, there's the vast thing. If it's design, there's interior fashion. Within fashion, you have lingerie, you have sportswear, you have casual, you have evening, you have so many, right? So you need to, in each industry, the education is important, but to figure out what you are, who you are, what you want to be, um, and which supports your experience. So your experience is what kind of gives that edge to, or trigger to kind of figure out, okay, I enjoy doing that. If you don't experience anything, you would not know that you like it. So I think it's basically simply all these need to uh, uh, fall in place to what you really like and what you want to do. Because I never felt like you said, there were other brands, maybe I was not feeling competition, or I know, I always wanted to do what I wanted to do, what I really like to do. So I think that is something that we are losing out also because of competition. Sometimes role models not always help, because you don't want to make sure that you don't want to be your role model, but you want to be your own version of that role model. Because we look at other people and go behind their dreams and we forget our dream. That's why you want to enjoy your work and have your individuality.
Okay, so that was a nice statement. Like we forget our own dreams when we follow someone else's path.
Yeah.
Like we have to be very unique in our own ways, but it's also fine to do something which other person might have also done, but in your
Right.
own unique
In
way.
your own way. I mean, that's what role models help, but sometimes I always say I can be, I'm happy to be, I mean, if I'm your role model, it's fine, but then don't do what I'm doing, because you need to find what you like to do, because you might not like what I'm really doing, right?
Yeah, like
So,
you should consider competition, but your sole competitor should be yourself, I would say.
yes.
So like I this is like a personal thing.
Yeah.
I followed this interior designing degree at Northumbria University again for like a couple of months, and I was actually interested in this decoration parts
Yeah.
and not like in depth of interior designing. And when I got into the degree and saw how people did, how the briefs and the assignments came up, there was so much of things to do. Like people look at a fashion designer or interior designer and they'll be like, they're just fashion designer, they're just doing simple work, just cutting and stitching, and that's all. But I actually saw there's so much more that people do there. There's so much of hard work, creativity, imagination that is needed there. So do you think people still believe that fashion designers are not considered as like a very professional uh, like a profession?
It's changing. I would say back then, like maybe when I wanted to do a design, obviously everybody asked, are you sure you want to do a career? But I said, yeah, that's, I want to do it, right? It's not going to be my hobby, but it's I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
uh, but I think last few years, I think it's changing. This is not just for fashion design, I guess this is towards design, art, that creative sector, all like across creative sector. This was happening. You will look at a singer like this, you will look at an artist, you will, would you call an artist a career? So very few, like architect, you would call a career, like a very professional thing. But then, you know, some writers, some very creative areas, culinary, you know, you have a profession, but then all these I think has the artistic and creative value, right? So some of these creatives, people are not recognized as professionals or careers. You know, people don't push it, like you don't want to cut your hair is not a creative thing.
Yeah.
Is not a creative thing, but it
And you
is.
get
It has,
judged, yes,
yeah, it
too.
has creativity. So, but I think last maybe 10 years or so, it has changed. A lot of people who are in the creative industry have made that statement. You know, we do make money, right? It's a process. But what is most important thing is also in design, if you really look at everything you use, right now you're in front of a laptop, it's designed, right? You have a piece of a book and a pencil, that's design. You have your phone next to you, that's design. It's on a table, that's design. Are you, if you're eating a chocolate, that cover is designed. um, I mean, everything you see around you right now is designed. Somebody designed it, right?
Even the chocolate bar is a design.
These are design. Like you have graphic designers. If you're like now watching a movie without listening to me, you're still watching. It's designed, right? If you're watching Instagram pictures, that has creativity. Everything is involves that design and creativity. So why not, as consumers, as people, we need to start valuing it. The thing is, we don't value it, right? When we say designer, we are like, somebody asks us to design, they don't want to still pay for it, because you know it doesn't cost for the thought, but it is a thought, a creative thought, a creative
You
idea
could do it
that
for a
has.
very long time and then you come to the final solution. Yeah.
So that's where I think, as it's a perception of consumer as well, that you need to start. I mean, that's why I'm saying, being a designer brand, I don't know whether I still pay for the design sometimes, because the time that we put in as a designer, sometimes we can't price it, because people don't, in Sri Lanka, market is such that don't pay for the design, you know.
I
uh,
was getting to that question now. Like, is there any difference between the foreign market and the Sri Lankan market? How the Sri Lankan apparel industry, the design industry react towards designers and their dedication? Is there any
So
difference?
Sri Lanka, so the foreign, I mean, I mostly retail here. My experience is probably different, but looking at the designer brands, they are paying for the brand name, right? So these designs are things, you know, then the designs are being copied by the, you know, you have the high end designers, then you have the high street design brands, and then high street retail brands, and then these people, each one look at the upper tier and then recreate. So the top tier is, of course, is expensive and unique, and they pay for the brand mostly. But the bottom tiers is like, you don't have the brand, but you have the same product for a cheaper price. So it's very hard in the fashion industry to kind of, you know, someone will pay a few lakhs to buy a dress, but another one will buy it for a few pounds, you know, a few thousands, the same look. It's a very uh, uh, um, complicated industry, I would say, and therefore it's in Sri Lanka it is even more worse, because for us there is a limit that people will pay for fashion.
Hmm.
You know,
That's
is somebody going to pay few lakhs for a dress? Is somebody especially when you look at the local brands, so there, and they would pay for that foreign brand but not the local brand, because they don't consider that local person is also designing, going through the same process and giving a very unique design, but they would go for that brand and pay that big amount, right? So that is also there. So the local brands, the effort or the value that we put in sometimes don't get recognized as well.
so. I hope that it gets recognized and there is like a actually a change that is needed in the apparel industry again, of how they treat designers. Like I've heard some of stories and they're like actually very sad to like listen to them, because when they're not being valued for the actual hard work they put in. So we'll just hope that it happens sooner. And did you face any difficulties or any failures on the way?
Failures happens every day, sort of. Um, so I mean, there have been so many, let's say, failures from, obviously, first collection. When I started off, nobody really bought any of our products because they didn't want to wear waste, basically, right? So then that's how we moved into accessories and kind of started our business model on accessories. But eventually, with the awareness, they know what upcycling is now, they know what waste is now, so they don't mind wearing it now. So that was a big failure. And then I had a failure of, you know, like I think I mentioned this before. We started talking about our story, saying upcycle, but we, after 2 years, we figured out that there's no one really knows what upcycling is. Therefore, we need to take a step back and, okay, let's start educating what upcycling. There have been days that's like the bigger failures or bigger, I mean, they're not failures as such, but uh, down moments, I would say. Then obviously there have been days that we haven't had a single sale in pop-ups when we do. So there have been those days have been extremely discouraging, and feel like thinking, okay, what the hell am I really doing? Because you're under the sun outside, waiting for somebody to come and buy your products, but there's nobody buying your stuff. So there had been so many moments like that. At the same time, uh, what other failures? So there have been like every day there's a learning. So which means you have to kind of face a situation to kind of learn a lesson as well.
So they say failures are the pillars of success.
Yeah.
You give, I mean, you have a very good motive, like for the well-being of so many people out there, for the nature, for the sustainability of the earth. So obviously there'll be a good impact, and people would realize the value of the business you're doing. We hope that it happens soon again. Like every industry was affected by COVID-19, as you know, and there was no like one industry that has not been affected in one way or another. Everything has gone down. Economic growth has slowed, depreciation, currency exchange rates, and everything is so bad right now. How has COVID affected your type of business, what you are doing, and what are the challenges you faced during this 1.5 years time?
I mean, the challenge was, I think, just like for everybody, the sales went down, the business had to hold, um, things happen. But the best part about is, for us, we were at a rate doing what we were doing, right? So we got about good 2 months to kind of really reflect on our business. So if last March, April, that lockdown period, we kind of reflected. I was just like a robot. I was just constantly doing the same old things I was doing, right? So I had time to really sit back and think about what I've been doing for the past 8 years, what really went wrong, because of those things to analyze, sometimes you don't have time. So I think that I had time to analyze what was going on in the business, and then actually uh, put it in a piece of paper and think, okay, where do we want to go, how do we focus, like to plan really. So I think those 2 months, even though things went down, it was very helpful for us, for me to kind of really reflect on what we have been doing. That probably helped afterwards, like from, let's say, from July to December, to kind of replan and restart the work. So that's why we've changed the model. We've started measuring things. We want to be impactful. I think so. We've kind of back on our track, like a better, with a better vision, better focus, um, and I think the last few months have been we have been growing slowly, but working well. The COVID, of course, affected us, but we kept on going because our manufacturing happens at mostly home based, right? So as much as possible, we continued our manufacturing, because we also wanted to our workers, because we didn't want them to like obviously during COVID, they needed money and they were at homes. They had to look after kids. They had to pay for the internet for their kids to learn from homes. There's so many commitment as well for them. So therefore, we made sure that we pay them monthly, and we make sure that we gave them work, even though we didn't have sales at all in some months. So we had that commitment also. So that has helped us to kind of build a better relationship with our workers also, because they have felt that we are there when they need us. So and we were there for them. So that helped us to kind of create a better relationship and move forward. Now we are actually uh, in doing better, I would say. That has helped to realize a lot of things.
So we're done with the questions. I would open up to the audience for their questions. You can pop out them now. Does anyone have a question to ask Lonali?
This is the time.
Yeah. It's dead silent.
Hello, Miss.
Yes.
Miss, when you considering the sustainability and the environmental friendly products,
Hmm.
what happens to your cost of manufacturing? Is it high or low? So according to that, what's your pricing strategy?
Right, good question. So at the moment, if you really look at in the market, sustainable stuff are a bit expensive, right? Organic vegetable is expensive than normal vegetable. Sustainable fashion is expensive than the high street fashion. Why? We are trying to break something and do it in a new style, right? So to do that, it's a bit costly. It takes a little bit more time and risk, right? The best example is, let's say, the organic food. We don't put fertilizer, therefore the harvest is slow and low, right? We have comes It doesn't come daily. You have to wait till it comes, properly grow it. You can't put chemicals and do whatever. So just like that, in the fashion industry also, there is a supply chain, and what we are doing is it's probably trying to address the issue. So what I'm doing is, there is waste, so taking that waste and creating products rather than doing the same process, which is easier, right? So it takes a little bit of time. Usually in a cutting machine, you usually lay the fabric and cut all 100 pieces. So what I get is the leftovers from that in different shapes. So I can't put that in a cutting table and cut. I have to hand cut it. Every time I get it, it's a different cut. So I have to keep on, changing patterns, changing. So we kind of evolve. So the process, yes, it takes a lot of time, then probably double, triple time than a usual process, right? In different cases, I think a different amount of times in clothes. I mean, in that fashion also, like one pattern, they'll make 1,000 pieces. For us, one pattern maybe 10 pieces. It's very unique, right? The time we put it is a lot. Um, but one thing that in my process, we have a little bit of a benefit because we use waste, but we give that benefit straight away to the person who makes it, because they are the ones who have to spend more time, right? So there is no, like, just because a lot of people say, if you are making out of waste, why isn't your clothes cheap? Because I can't make it cheap, because I have to give that benefit to the person who spends more time to create that product, right? uh, and right now, our pricing model, if you really take it, our pair of like our clothing ranges from 5,000 to 15,000 range. Our shoes range from 5,000 to 8,000, or that range. We have bags and accessories starting from 500 bucks to 5,000 rupees. So if you really look at it, in Sri Lanka, I haven't been able to price it as a sustainable brand, because it is not, or a designer brand, because we don't sometimes, we pay for it, right? And I also believe, as a brand, I should be, every Sri Lankan should have a piece of Lonali and be a part of saving the environment. So therefore, I'm keeping it affordable, and I'm keeping it for everybody. But to say that, since we are breaking that norm of supply chain or way of making, it is costly. So therefore, it is probably slightly higher than what is available in the market. If I answered, if you're clear. Was it?
Yes, Miss. Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? That was a good question. To add on to that, I think when you start looking at what values you have put into the products, then yes, you when you know that it's made by in a factory that the people couldn't even move, didn't have space, it was it was child labor or something, then do you really want to make it, have that product cheap, or do you mind paying it a bit more, because you're also supporting a better value chain, right? So that's where the question is, because consumers demand the wrong thing, demand the cheap price. Therefore, I think it has to change from the consumer. A consumer also needs to say, no, we would pay for the good quality products, so that the quality, or a good supply chain, a good value chain is behind that product. You're encouraging a better value chain.
Any more questions, guys? Okay, so
Yeah,
non-stop.
looks like
Yeah.
we've covered a lot.
Yes. So, so like, do you have a final message for a potential successful social entrepreneur or an individual who still wonders if he or she could create a social business in a more viable, is it a viable career track? What would you say?
It is definitely a viable career track, but you need to see whether you are that person, because entrepreneurship is not a trend. um, Entrepreneurship is something that you need to know whether you are that, or whether you, I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a designer, but it's something that you can do or you want to do, you like to do. All these questions is something that you need to figure out. So I think I've said how to figure out is something that you need to figure out your experience, your knowledge, um, and everything you basically do, your passion, your commitment, everything, right? And then finally, if you have a good idea, make sure that it solves a problem, because if you don't solve a problem, it becomes just another business, not a standing out entrepreneurship. You have to remember the business. You can be a businessman, or you can be an entrepreneur who addresses a problem, gives a solution, and also innovate something new. So those three things, whether you have that when you start your business, put your business idea out.
Yeah. So that's it, I think. So I think we could wind up the session. What I would like to say, as
So
before we wind up.
finally, I would like you all to follow our page, House of Lonali. And we are also having the Fashion Revolution Week coming in April. That is memorizing the whole Rana Plaza incident that I mentioned, and I'll be leading it from Sri Lanka as well. So I want everybody to be a part of it and be engaged if possible, and be conscious consumers.
Yeah. So, like with the fast changing world, people tend to find very easy ways to get their work done, even it means being inhuman and insensitive towards the mother nature and her living beings and the natural resources. So, therefore, at least the upcoming entrepreneurs or individuals should know the ethical ways to carry out their activities. In this way, so many good things could happen, and we could make a world a better place for all the living beings, greenery, natural resources, and Mother Earth as a whole out there. So thank you, Lonali, once again. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time with us. And everyone who joined the event today, even is like very less. I don't know what happened to them. So see you all on another day with a similar event. Till then, be safe. Good night.
Good night. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.